to start our wood processing for the 2019 season. We rented this machine here. It's a Dyna Products SC15 wood processor. It's a pretty cool machine. Here in a minute I'll give you a walk around and give you all what the machine does and what it's capable of doing. Bear in mind I'm not an engineer. I don't know all the specs. Just as a homeowner who rents it, I'll tell you my perspective on it, I guess. We are going to try to cut 30 face cord of wood, and the way we define it here in this region as a face cord, and that's kind of an arbitrary term, but it's 8 feet by 4 feet by whatever length you cut it. So we're going to try to do that, 30 of those face cords, which isn't a legal term at all, in 2 days. We have the logs already delivered. They've been sitting here in my yard for about 2 months now. We'll load them up with the tractor onto the wood processor here. My friend Kyle, he'll be running the wood processor. I'll be running the tractor, and we're going to try to see how efficiently we can get those 2 piles of logs cut. I anticipate that part of them will have to get cut by hand. I cut some of them by hand already. I anticipate there to be a little bit left to cut. That's just how it went last year. If we can be more efficient than we were last year, I'll be surprised. But we'll see how efficient we can get with it. So without further ado, I guess I'll give you a walk around on the machine here. So to start talking, I guess, about the wood processor, we got to talk about the tractor. We're using this John Deere 300 Industrial, which is the same as, I believe, a 1020, an older 1020. I guess just painted yellow and was made for doing road work. It works really good on the farm here, other than it's a little wide. I would appreciate it to be a little narrower than it is, but it's what we have and it's what I could afford. We built that set of forks right there for it, and we'll be loading up the logs off that. Hang on. Those 2 stacks of logs over there, and we'll be driving it over here with the tractor and loading it up onto the log deck here. The log deck is 3 independently moving arms here. Well, I'm sorry, they're not independently moving, but they're independent arms. They fold out independently, and the chain on them all runs off the same lever, so they all move evenly when you run it. Other wood processors, you can run them independently. This one you can't. You run them together. The logs run forward and fall down onto this conveyor here. That conveyor takes 1 log at a time. If you're good and you don't get 2 of them in there, you run 1 log at a time, and it goes forward and it comes to the cutter head up here. This cutter head here is, I believe, a 22-inch chain. I might be wrong on that. I think that's what he's told me it was. So, and that chain drops down just like a chainsaw and bucks it off. Drops a round of firewood down into that chamber right there. And that big plate is a wood splitter ram, and that wood splitter ram pushes that round through the splitter here, which has wood jammed up in it right now because I couldn't help but play with it last night as soon as I got it here. And we'll give you another video of this thing running here in a minute. And that round gets pushed through the splitter head and shoots out the back here. And as you push more and more rounds through it, it pushes more and more wood through, and eventually pushes the wood into this conveyor system here. This conveyor system rounds right up and dumps it off the end and into a pile. We take it from that pile then and put it into a wood stack. This is all pine I have cut here right now, and I use that for in early mornings when the fire's burned down quite a bit to throw it in there and get the fire rekindled and ready to burn. So we split this separately from the hardwood we're going to be splitting today. So after it shoots out into that, we stack it up. It's pretty self-explanatory, and I'll give you some video of it running today. Hopefully we can get as much wood as I want cut today. All right. Well, it's all done now. Me and my friend Kyle, we worked for about a day and a half. Well, not even a full half a day, a little over a day with that wood processor. It was 10 machine hours on that thing, and we cut 60 cord of wood, which 60 face cord, I guess. I'll be a little more specific here. 60 face cord, which would be about 20 pole cord wood. If you were to buy it from a log truck, you'd be buying 20 cord from a log truck, and that's how we got it. We bought it on a log truck and had it delivered, so we bought 20 cord. It's all cut and split and stacked up in that pile there, or piled up in that pile. We've started stacking a bit of it, but we got a long ways to go on that. We're hoping that 60 cord of wood will last us 2 winters now. My plan will be to burn all winter this winter and see where we're at, how much we have left, and make a decision in the spring of whether we'll order another load of logs or not. And if we decide not to order another load of logs, I'll cut with a chainsaw and split it on my little splitter enough to have a surplus to make sure that we're going to make it through that second winter, because I don't want to run out of wood in the middle of winter. We have a backup. We can burn propane for backup, so we wouldn't go without heat, but it's significantly cheaper to burn with wood. We bought that 20 pole cord of wood for $1,600, and it was mostly maple, pretty good maple. There was a few other hardwoods mixed in there, but it was mainly maple. I'd say about 90% maple actually. And we paid $1,600 for it. We had about $700 in the machine cost between renting that machine, putting fuel in it, putting fuel in the tractor, and all of that come together to about $700. Bar oil in it, all that stuff accounted for. So we're looking at about $2,300 to get heat for 2 years. If you ask me, in this part of the country, we have some pretty darn cold winters, and I'd say that's pretty affordable compared to what it would cost us in propane. We would go through about 900 gallons of propane, so in a single winter if we burned just propane. So you can see how that could get pretty pricey pretty quick. Now we did have to cut the wood, and then we did have to put some physical labor into it, but that's kind of our way of life. That's kind of why we live out here. It's kind of why we have a homestead, for lack of anything better to call it. We have a homestead here, and that's why we chose to live our life this way, is we enjoy doing things for ourselves. It's why we have a garden. We raise food for ourselves. No, we don't raise all of our food. Maybe someday we'll get there, but right now we don't know. We do maple syrup in the spring, so we can provide our own syrup. We hunt off the land to provide our own meat. We have bees so that we can provide honey for ourselves. Now, our goal is to someday have enough surplus in all of these things that we can sell the surplus and make a revenue off from it as well. But that, to shy away from the work that, a weekend worth of work put into 2 years worth of heat, that's something that we would never shy away from. We would always be willing to put that labor in. We're young people here. We have our health to our advantage, and we're gonna take advantage of it, and we're gonna do things for ourselves when we can. That being said, that machine was a great tool, and it saved us a lot of work, and I think using the tools to your advantage is a good thing too. There's a lot of people that just cut wood with a chainsaw and a wood splitter, or a chainsaw and a splitting maul or an axe. I've done that before. I've cut all of our wood for our entire winter before by hand. I've done that growing up. On our house growing up, we did that every year. Me and my dad would spend almost every weekend in the woods cutting wood for the winter. And that's your entire summer devoted to that. We have other tasks and chores that we want to get done around here, and maintaining a garden and raising 3 kids and having a family. It's not feasible for us to be in the woods every single weekend to cut 30 face cord of wood to heat for the winter. So we took an easier way and we ordered the logs and had them delivered, and we rented that wood processor that turned an entire summer worth of cutting wood into a 10-hour project. 10 hours, I can't imagine how many hours that would be throughout a summer that would be spent in the woods cutting. I would say it's upward of 100 hours, maybe even 200 hours in the woods cutting wood and splitting wood to get that amount of wood. So that's tremendous for us. That machine, well worth the rent. Definitely well worth the rent on it. That's the second year we rented it, and I think we became a little more proficient with it this year than we were last year. Figured it out a little bit, knew exactly how we were going to work things out, knew how we were going to move the machine, and how we were going to pile the wood to be the most efficient way we could do it. I thought about that for a while, and I talked to my friend Kyle about it, and we came up with a game plan, and man, we worked that plan, and it came together and it worked well. And that's not to say we didn't have any hiccups. We did. We had some malfunctions with the forks on the tractor. We had to I had to take a break from loading logs for a brief minute there to weld on the forks, but we got that done, and that's, you know, a good reason to have a welder around a homestead right there, I'll tell you that. And we got that done. We got back in the game, and we got going, and we cut some wood. Kyle, he knows how to operate a piece of machinery. He had never run one of them wood processors before showing up, and he played with those levers a few times, figured out how that thing ran, and man, he was off and going. I couldn't hardly keep the logs on the log deck for him there for a while. He was just slaying them. He knows what he's doing when it comes to running machinery. He's a true machine operator. I can tell you, I'm not a machine operator. That's not what I do. But that man, he can hop on almost any piece of machinery and he can run it, and that was awesome. On the wood processor, we identified a few things that if we were building a wood processor ourselves, me and him, what we would do differently. Now, we're not fabricators and we don't build things like that. We have built stuff before, but if we were to build one, we would change a few things, and one of them was the log deck itself. When you're feeding the logs into the tray that conveyors the logs back and forth, sometimes it's hard to separate the logs, especially when they're littler or they got branches on them or whatever, and they're not perfectly straight. No logs are ever perfectly straight, especially the ones you're going to be getting for running a wood processor, because those are the limbs and the wood that isn't good enough to be cut into lumber, so that you'd be cutting it for firewood. If there was a way to separate those logs out a little better, or be able to pick one of them back up and send it back onto the log deck some way. If there was a way to do that, I think it would make it even more efficient. Instead of having to stop and go wrestle with that log, the operator could just keep going. That was probably the single most biggest issue with regard to this other issue, is when you get to the end of the log, the very last little piece, it has a tendency to want to fall into the splitter, and it's too long to go through the splitter. It has to be cut yet. You have to cut one more cut. We're cutting up 20 inches, so you have a 40-inch piece of wood that's coming out, and it wants to fall down into the splitter before you can actually cut it and get the clamp on it. If there was a way to have like an arm that came up and would hold it, so then you could cut it and then drop it down in and then send that last piece in, I think that would work good. I know that other wood processors do have that. I've seen it on some YouTube videos I've watched of other wood processors. But if this one had that would save you, because I know there's going to be some people saying this isn't safe, and we know it's not safe, and we know what we're doing, and we're watching. But we'd have to stick our arm into there, hold that piece up until the clamp came down and grabbed a hold of it, and then move our arm and cut it. We don't really like the idea of having to put our limbs into the machine operating area in order to have the machine operate effectively. So that would be the one biggest thing we'd like to see changed on most machines. But you never know. Those machines are made right here in Michigan, and I have a half a mind to call down there and talk to the guy who owns the company and makes them. I've called him and talked to him before. He's a really nice gentleman, and maybe just let him know what we think here after running it for 2 seasons now. And then the one thing, my dad, he came over, and he's a pretty smart guy. He's always, I call him fabricobbling, but he's always fabricobbling stuff together, or redneck engineering, or whatever you call it. He's always making stuff, and he brought up a really good point. The conveyor belt is in a fixed position, so it can't articulate in either direction. It can go up or down, but it can't articulate back or forth. And if it could, you would be able to, almost like a gravel wash plant. If you've ever seen one of them, you'd be able to put that pile in a big arc then, and you wouldn't have to move the machine as often. You could put a big arc this way, and then you'd pull it ahead and put another big arc on top of it and pull it ahead. Well, shoot, by the time you make one of those big arcs, you'd be almost through all of your wood. If you're cutting as much wood as we were, you might not have to move the machine at all if the conveyor belt could articulate back and forth. So that'd be really nice to see that, maybe on a future version of one of those machines. But anyways, yeah, it was a good weekend. We learned a lot, and we cut a lot of wood. We'll see how long it lasts us, I guess. I'll keep you updated. Take care.